My name's Bob Turner. I'm Lydney born and bred. This is obviously like more or less the playground as a youngster, Lydney Harbour. It's completely different today. But as we look across the river now, the tide's going down and we can look at the village of, see Barclay Church just across the other side. And then we're looking further up and I'm looking and remembering in my mind where the old Severn Railway Bridge used to go across. And that was 60 years ago, 25th of October 1960, two petrol tankers heading for Sharpness missed the entrance, thick foggy night, and hit the bridge and knocked two spans out, and unfortunately 5 men lost their lives that night. First I knew about it, I was living at home, was next day because the police were going around, and I said to my father, what's the problem? And he said, we got to turn the gas off because our main gas supply then was coming up from Bristol across that bridge into the Forest of Dean. We're on the end of the pier looking up into the harbour now, and there's just tourists walking around more or less, whereas years ago it was very industrialised, and as we walk round there we'll see examples of where they used to load coal. We're up by the bottom gate now of the harbour where the boats would come in, and some of the memories that brings back to me is we come down as young teenagers on our bike. There'd be a docker on these mechanical ones, one each side, and it was, come on lads, come and help us. And in those days, you know, they give you a handle and you would help them. The gates would then open and a boat would come in or out. What's now the yacht club, many years ago, and some of it before my time, there was a shop as well there. And that because of the number of people working down here, because of the number of people coming in on boats and so on, it was a shop and so on, and quite active there. But the yacht club got it now. So we're outside now what was the mortuary on the right of us, which is now being converted into toilets. And straight in front of us is what was a storeroom, which has been made into the visitors centre. It was a very industrial down here. Boats were coming in, and somebody said if they found a body at sea they'd bring it to Lydney. But also there was 5 coal loading places up the canal here, and obviously there was no modern fencing and things like that in those days. And I guess unfortunately people did lose their lives occasionally with that as well. We're at the end of the railway track now, what was the railway track down from the Forest of Dean. And this is the lower coal loading place. There still remains of a turntable here, as you can see. All this on this side of the canal now, right from here right to the railway station and just beyond to a marshalling yard, was railway track with coal wagons, full and empty coal wagons on. They would bring the coal down, one wagon at a time, would go onto that turntable and then get lifted up, and a complete wagon load would go into a boat. And then the empty wagon would come down here, and as you can see it's sloping down because they then freewheel down. Literally what you can do today, from where we're stood now, you can walk to the bottom end of Newen Street in Lydney, about 2 miles away or more. You only cross the road once, and that's by the railway station. So people can cycle down here, bring family down with pushchairs or wheelchairs and so on, all the way down. The water's flowing out now from the canal, from the River Lyd basically, coming down from the forest. And we can see now, whereas it was commercial, there's now 20, 30 cabin cruisers parked in here. But they wouldn't have been there in my younger days. As youngsters, our game was catching alvers. I mean, alvers apparently sell for very high prices at the moment to Japan and so on. But people used to go in Lydney selling alvers in pint beer mugs basically, you bought them by the pint. And as youngsters, our mother would give us a bit of old curtain netting, and we'd get a couple of pieces of pole and make our own light fishing net from it. And the other picture on here is the 7 trolls that they brought in to protect the bank, and as we go up here now we will see what's left of them. We as youngsters would play on them and jump across them and so on, you know. One of the pictures we saw, the front one, was the Nibley. We saw that complete, and there's the Nibley today as we look down. They're just a few chunks of wood, and going back 1950s, 1960, there was a complete boat there, and you can see what's left today. Suppose we take a bit of a shortcut now, down onto the lower level, and then we're going to go over what we call the swing bridge. It's been basically rebuilt in the last few years, but as you can see, it's a good walking place. So as we look across here now, two things. Straight across, behind the low wall, and we'll be there closer in a minute, that's where the harbour master's house was. And then looking across the derelict site, which has been knocked down, that was where the Pine End Works was, as it was known. That's where they made the high quality plywood. It was a big employer. Just up there is where they used to unload these mammoth logs of imported timber. So there'd be certain timber boats here as well. They were pulled up by the workers with ropes. There was only about 4 or 6 mammoth tree trunks in each one. There used to be a big gantry coming out, would pick the logs up out the boats and put it into a storage area. So there's a lot of people working there as well. Up by the railway station was some other warehouses, and that's where they used to load tin plate. Lydney had a big tin plate works. There was 3 tin plate works in the Forest of Dean: Lydney, Redbrook and Lydbrook. My father worked at Lydney tin plate works all his life. Maybe beginning of his time they used to bring boats down with tin plate on, but that was many, many years ago.